Gentlemen, welcome everybody to the 2025 Kickstart Invitational podcast, where we dive into the soul of the Kickstart Invitational. I'm, of course, your host, Kyle Steffi, alongside Justin and Carter McPhail. In each episode, we'll be bringing you the latest developments, expert analysis, behind-the-scenes interviews, and exclusive insights of the Kickstart Invitational. First and foremost, Justin and Carter, how you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing well, Kyle.
Before we introduce you guys, or maybe reintroduce you guys to our special guest, we got to pay the bills. Carter, you want to run the read?
Yes, sir. This episode is proudly sponsored by Dunham Sports, your one-stop destination for all things sporting goods. Whether you're into hunting, fishing, or loving every day, Dunham's has everything you need to elevate your experience in the great outdoors. Get ready to step up your game with Dunham's exclusive offer. Use code Kickstart25 for an amazing 25% off on all golf gear and accessories. Exclusions may apply.
Thank you, Carter. Thank you, Dunhams. Make sure you guys are checking the chat for the Kickstart Invitational codes that Dunham sends us. As you guys can see, special guest, big time special guest, long awaited episode here. We have our MVP runner up in 2023. He's a lawyer for the IRS. He is a Chicago or Chirac resident. He's been my bunkmate the last 2 years of the Kickstart Invitational and one of my favorite partners to play with on the trip. And most importantly, captain of the Golden Harps. Everybody give a warm welcome to Chase Bierbauer. Chase, you're on record for this answer once. Let's hear it again, maybe on a different perspective. What does the Kickstart mean to you?
One of the highlights of the year, when I play my most golf. That's one big thing anymore. But it's just nice, like the whole weekend, getting to hang out with everybody at the house, kind of enjoy that part more than the golf anymore. And then with the golf, it's like, I think I said this last time, it's the best blend of like competitive where everyone's pushing themselves and, really competing, but at the same time, then, you leave the course and it's kind of done and everyone's just having a good time. So makes it a nice trip.
100%. So, as you guys can see by the title here, this is the 2024 recap. Chase, we're going to dive into the round by round here and kind of the thought process of everything that happened. But, run us through the overall experience that you had being a captain, and then maybe some, key takeaways or memories just from last year's trip in general.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Spent a lot of time leading up to it, trying to strategize, think about what Carter was going to do and how he could react having the second pick there. Tried to come up with maybe a clever trade proposal with what went on in year 2. Nothing quite came together, but was really happy with the team that I drafted and came really close. I think it was didn't end up being the tightest score, but there was a moment there at about 8 holes left where it looked like we were going to pull off an unbelievable comeback on the last day. So came close, didn't quite close it out, but it was a great week.
Do you have any specific memories or, whether it be funny or serious, that you kind of look back and stick out to you?
One for sure, learning that you actually beat Justin and it wasn't a very elaborate bit. Beat convincingly, I will add.
Shot that 66.
Yeah,
we'll get into it. We'll get in. That's enough. Yeah, we'll get into
It'll
it.
probably be my lasting highlight of year 3.
Chase, was there any point where you truly believed that I was not picking my brother first overall?
No.
Even when I texted you and told you I wasn't?
Yeah, no.
I had my own doubts. I was included in.
Justin was the one that had the most doubts.
I was included. I thought for a second you might be cocky enough to try it, just to say you pulled it off without him. But we're really cemented as when you texted me saying that. Knew which way it was going.
When was it? The day before?
Oh, it was like a week before he texted me saying I'm actually not gonna pick him, bro. Believe me.
As he was simultaneously texting Bobby Fairways to make the first pick, I'm sure.
Yeah, well.
Until I saw that video, like the day before or 2 days before the Kickstart, even though I had been in all the off-season talks about the strategy and where we should go and, what's this guy like, what's that guy like, I still, like a week out, was like, there's a really good chance he still does not pick me number one.
Come on.
But, well, let's just quickly, before Carter gets into your player profile, we decided Founders is probably out as the beer spot hangout. Other than New Holland, what's one other place you might like to see the group go?
Speakeasy would be one. Great. Might be a fun morning, catch a Premier League game. Great breakfast. Logan Valley, that would be my main pick.
Yeah. Awesome. Two great backups, second chances. So, Cart, give us the player profile.
All right. In 2024, Chase Bierbauer became the fourth ever player to captain a Kickstart Invitational team, joining the esteemed predecessors of myself, Colin Turzin, and Preston Beard. His journey has been one of resilience and redemption through 2024, though 2024 proved to be a challenging year. Despite his best effort, the Golden Harps came up empty, marking a tough conclusion to Chase's captaincy. Chase's story remains one of determination after a difficult 0-4 record in 2022. He roared back in 2023, becoming a critical piece in the Conductors' championship victory. And on the 18th hole of the final round, selflessly conceded a long putt to Preston to tie their singles match and secure the final half point needed for the win. His 2023 record, a standout 3-0-1. Improved strokes gained numbers throughout the years. Known as the group's unofficial expert on the Grand Rapids golf and beer scene, Chase is always a primary source of recommendations when the team goes belly up. His reserved demeanor makes him an easy companion over 18 holes, but be careful discussing your finances. IRS employee Chase prefers to save tax talk for April 15th. Chase entered last year's tournament with high hopes, although through limited practice time, this proved to be a little bit of a hurdle. Word from regional scouts reported only 2 rounds of golf before the tournament, and one of them was a recorded 90. Adam Skunktenfeld put it bluntly, this guy can play, but he needs to get out more if he wants to bring home the trophy. And as we all know, his attempt was unsuccessful. While 2024 didn't end in victory, Chase Bierbauer remains a cornerstone of the Kickstart Invitational, a player with grit, sportsmanship, and a legacy still in the making.
I mean, that's my cap.
Feedback by your scout there. pretty
low-hanging fruit, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, I get what you pay for. Scouts are not paid well.
No,
that's
exactly.
gonna bring us
does
to
make it hard to play.
That's gonna bring us to this 2024 recap. And before we get started with it, I want to let you guys know that this segment and really the remainder of this podcast is sponsored by Alliance Beverage. They've actually asked us to provide the remainder of this podcast ad-free. So thank you to Alliance Beverage. Thank you to Dan Henderson. Thank you to Dan's boss. And to Dan's boss's boss. I never want to see you in these streets.
You can go
That's all I'm
fuck
going to say.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving into that, on draft night, we had a practice round at Thornapple Point. We'll maybe get into that towards the end of this when we talk about what the future of the Kickstart Invitational is. But as we hop right into it, right off the bat, we saw that video of Bobby Fairways announcing the number 1 overall pick, myself. Chase followed that up with the next lowest handicap player in the field, Jake Transit. Moving into round 2, I think Carter took a guy that Chase was really coveting. We saw some trade talks go down shortly after this, but he was able to take Cullen Turzin. And then Chase, in response, took Austin Esser. I know a guy that Carter was targeting as well, which left the 2024 Labatt Blue Rookie of the Year available, and Carter took Parker Mitchell. Chase followed that up with Cody Smith. Carter followed him up with Brendan McLaren. Kyle Steffi, our wonderful host, was taken shortly after him in round 4, leaving the last 2, Dan Henderson and Preston Beard. Carter elected to take Dan, and Mr. Irrelevant, Preston Beard, was taken with the final pick of the 2024 Kickstart Invitational Draft.
So, Chase, you look back at the draft. Not that we're necessarily opening the door to talk shit on some guys. I don't think that's the intent here. But, are there any moves that maybe you regret, or places where you wanted to reach and didn't? Places that you felt like the draft fell in your favor? Like, where do you look back at the draft and kind of see how it went from hindsight being 2020?
No major mistakes. I mean, I think it was close enough there on the last day that I think it wasn't too much of a who was there. It was more just we didn't win a couple matches at crucial times. I think everyone played well. We just, kind of ran into a couple things. I was a bit unsure on draft day about Parker, just coming in new with a lower handicap. That can be kind of a flyer. You never know how a guy's going to end up playing, especially when they're going to be giving away shots to a lot of guys. So that might have been something I thought about earlier on, seeing how well he played. But overall, I was really happy with the team we had.
I know Justin mentioned you were highly coveting Cullen. Obviously, you could look at Tricky's handicap and make that be the reason. Is there any other reason to pick Tricky there over Cullen in round 1?
My biggest thing was just like consistency. I wanted guys that were going to be, high floor type players. I think Jake being the second best player in the tournament behind Justin, he's just going to be more reliable. And he played really well, had a winning record. Collins is just another one of those guys where even though his handicap's getting up there a little bit more than it has been in previous years, he can still go out and play with anybody. So that was kind of the draw there.
Carter,
consistent.
Carter, you and I have both grown up kind of golfing with Parker. Obviously, you knew how good he was, as much as I know. You think? I mean, obviously, there's no way you get him in round 3 going forward. I don't think. But how much were you salivating seeing Esser going off the board there? No disrespect to Esser, but
I mean, the reality is I played high school golf with Parker. Obviously, I knew his game at a fundamental level. However, I didn't know how it had developed in the next 5 years. Having seen him play that day at Thornapple as a partner, I felt like he was a guy that would complement my game really well. Felt like we worked well together. To where, we as a staff almost decided to take him in the second round, and just felt like he might be a guy that could slip. That being said, Esser was a guy we had our eye on in the third round, where if Chase didn't pick him, we were going to take him.
Carter, in the past, you were able to get a trade through you weren't able to get it done this year. Was this something you wanted to get done even before draft night, or were you open to getting it to draft night? Kind of run us through the antics there, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I got the two guys that I wanted in the first 2 rounds, and then Esser was the next guy on the list. So after Chase offered a trade that was probably, in hindsight, looking back, I should have maybe taken, because it was a big advantage. After he took essentially the guy that I wanted next, instead of accepting the trade, we offered the trade back. The same exact trade that Chase had offered, essentially showing in my hand that I wanted Austin Esser. He declined, and also noted that he was extremely disrespected, which I thought was unfair. But the trade, as the defending champion, I mean, you have all the advantage already, so the trade has to, really give you something more than what you're going to give up.
Chase, I mean, it was clear early on that you wanted to get a deal done. What was the deal offered? Kind of talk about the terms that you wanted and the players you were targeting, and then from your perspective, what stopped the deal from getting done?
I don't think it ended up being the same deal that they offered back to me. I think what I had originally wanted is I wanted that first pick in the second round and the third round. I think I was going to give up my second pick in the third round. I just wanted, he already got the top pick, so I wanted to kind of see if I could get back up there and pick a couple guys in a row in rounds 2 and 3. With the thought that maybe I could pick the guys that I thought were going to play more consistently, or had played more consistently in the previous years. And then kind of, you never know really with anyone, but in the later rounds, it can just kind of come down to who's playing well at that time. So I didn't think there was like necessarily bad picks at the back, so I was okay giving up those picks, trying to get maybe one more kind of main player earlier on that was going to kind of more likely to deliver what we thought we'd get.
So not necessarily a targeted player other than Cullen, but wanting to keep the odds stacked in your favor more, at least in the top.
Yeah, I think it's obvious looking back on it now that, as much as Carter and, I was in those talks too, as much as we were targeting Esser, that, making a trade for him wouldn't have turned out maybe as well, or maybe pair him with a different partner and he plays a little bit better. But are you both pretty much happy with the way your teams turned out? I know, Chase, you said that you were pretty much earlier, but Carter, is there, anything? Obviously you won the tournament, but is there anything you would have changed about that draft night other than the back and forth that didn't go through?
I will say real quick, I think the difference was that I wanted to figure out how to get like Colin, Austin, and Cody, or at least get in those early rounds. So then I think once I already had drafted Esser, Colin then offered the trade for Colin, which would have got me Colin, but not really like kind of the multiple items.
It would have been
that
a
we
lateral
wanted.
I would have got
Yeah.
Esser and Cody,
Yeah.
and he would have
Yeah,
had Cullen
right.
and not have the 3 anyways.
So
Yeah,
that's why
that
it
totally
was a different deal. But overall, I'm really happy. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, it can come down to who's playing well in the lead up. Hard to tell.
Yeah, you're basically predicting who's going to beat their handicap more times, or make more net birdies, and we might as well throw darts for them for the most part. But
got off
Yeah,
to kind of a slow start in the first 2 rounds, but maybe we turned 1 or 2 of those matches there, and it looked a lot different going into day 3. So Douglas as a whole didn't quite get out of it.
let's move right into it. So that the next day at the mines, we show up and, a ton of people were on the range. Obviously, if you had that filled out for the over in your bet slips, I think there was like 16 people down there, and the over under was at 2.5. So if you had the over in that, you were pretty happy to pull up and see about 6 cars and 10 golf carts down there. But the first match off, myself and Dan versus Esser and Cody, who went the whole distance, tied on 18 and tied the match. Cullen and Mac played Tricky and Kyle. They were able to beat them on the final hole. Mac's dots just proved to be, worth equally as much as Kyle, and he was able to two-putt that last hole to win it. And Karts and Parker played against Chase and Preston and also tied, came down to the last hole. So, the pairs out there, myself and Dan, Cullen and Mac, Karts and Parker. Carter, how did you arrive at these pairs? Was the pairing with Parker premeditated before the practice round? I know, it's good to have somebody that, you're familiar with, especially in that first round. But was any of his past play or anything really taken into account, or is that just something that you wanted him to be comfortable getting into the event?
A little bit of both. Obviously, our practice round at Thornapple, I think without everybody in the practice round as a whole knowing, me being with Parker was a must-have, and probably a little bit of an unfair advantage. Just getting a feel for his game and how we work together. We played against Kyle and Mac, and just an unfair fight with Kyle's double dot on Parkeries. I liked his game. I liked how it matched up with mine. And then going into the first round, he had never played at the mines, as far as I know. I felt like putting him with me, I could have kind of a more influence on kind of like welcoming him into what the Kickstart really is. And then obviously we had a lot of success at Thornapple together and felt like, being two lower handicaps, giving up a lot of dots, we could ham and egg it pretty good. We had some success. Colin and Brendan, I mean, those are just two peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You put them in a Ziploc bag and let them go crazy. That would be the match that I was a little more worried about, and they're the ones that got the point for us. And then you and Dan, obviously having good connectivity from Traverse City, you can kind of keep Dan in the between the lines a little bit. If he blows up on a hole, you'll be right there to make a par, and then just kind of keep him above water till the fireworks go off. So I liked that pair as well.
So for you, Chase, Carter obviously had an intimate knowledge of all the players he had. How do you go about, pairing up the guys on your team and sort of, are you lumping them into, A's and B's, and really A's can only play with B's, or, are you just looking at certain traits and matching guys up? And, specifically, what do you look for in a partner for yourself to go out there? Who are you hoping to get? Obviously, you had control as the captain, but when you're a player.
I think I knew everybody's game pretty well, so there's nothing wasn't like I was guessing. Talking the first night, we went with Austin and Cody just because they're both usually, super consistent guys. They're not going to deviate a ton.
I've had success in the past too.
Yeah. Put them both out there, and they're not going to have huge swings, but either one of them can show up on any hole and kind of take over. So there's always that upside too. Jake and Kyle, I think kind of a little bit similar to what Carter just said with you and Dan, is you're knowing you're going to transit, and then you never know with Kyle. double dotting somewhere if you could sneak one in that's probably otherwise unreachable. So, and then Preston and I pretty similar kind of players overall, I'd say. And he justified his last place pick by completely carrying our team virtually the entire round.
Carried the mail.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
So,
he performed really, really well.
Yeah.
Both if both of you can just touch on really quick, how much does the order of the pairings as they go out, how much does that depend on who the guys in your room want to play against versus kind of the order you want to get points on the board? Does that matter? Does the order matter, or is it more about trying to match up guys versus guys?
The matchup guys versus guys is always tough because you don't always get that. You don't always get that choice.
You're not always in control of that, yeah.
Right. So from experience putting the pairs out first, that's more of a mentality decision. I mean, I'll be open about I like playing in group 3. Just to kind of keep the game in front of me and kind of have an idea of what's going on.
We like you in group 3 too, just saying.
100%.
And then I played in the group 3 almost every round. In terms of that, just seeing what my teammates doing in front of me and knowing that I have a little bit more runway to try to make something happen if I need to. That being said, a lot of times, Jay, we have sent you out first to set the tone. When you have that decision, I think that goes into it. Player versus player, I think, is interesting to think about. That's more personality based, I think, with the dots.
You think that matters? Do you think that, not to cut you off, but do you think that really mostly only matters for singles?
Yeah.
Player versus player?
Yeah.
I think everybody's really so close that it just depends on, like, anything could happen to anyone. I don't think,
Sure.
I mean, maybe it can matter, but I think overall it's not going to be like the deciding factor either way. I think it's more just like how the two guys you put out will play with each other more than like playing against anyone particular.
Yeah, you're just sort of trying to maximize your pairing, not necessarily worry about trying to beat somebody else. That makes sense.
The dots, I feel like, are more of a contributor. You think about how you can maximize or things like that. Like putting Kyle out there against you in a 4-ball match gives Kyle a lot of dots.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put him out there with, Kyle and Fetty together, yeah, they have a lot of dots, but it might be a uphill battle where you could pair him with someone like Transit in a different pair where you get a lot of dots out of him and he can kind of just go wild.
For sure.
So
the dots are the main character in this event.
So Carts, this is the third year of the Kickstart. It's your first lead after round 1. We all know how all of the trips ended. Your first lead after round 1, leaving the mines in the green. We're getting ready to go to Founders. How is your internal morale feeling? Because I don't know if everybody knows, but the amount of pressure you have on yourself leading up to the trip to win it is high. So were you feeling good? Was the stress still there? Kind of run us through what that lead kind of felt like for you.
I was excited because our pre-round group that we thought might have an issue was the group that got the point. Kind of felt like Justin was going to be able to just beat everybody in. and they caught him with a tie. I was upset with tying our match. I felt like, especially on 18, was in extremely good position to win the match. Had an 8-iron in the fairway and almost missed the golf ball. So I felt like our lead should have been, a half point or more than it was. But you still looking at the leaderboard as up one after the first day always does feel good.
So let's go right into round 2 then. Your team is able to. Well, I suppose the lead stays the same after the morning round, but you bring out the same pairings again. So it's yourself and Parker heading out first against Esser and Kyle. You guys are able to take that one 3-2. Cullen and Mac versus Cody and Preston. Another good team. We'll get into that, but they tie each other. And then myself and Dan are beat by Trick and Chase on the final hole. Trick and Chase win 1-up. Kyle, why don't you talk about the pairings there? What do we see from Chase's team?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was one thing that I know you were excited about, Chase. I think a lot of us were pretty jacked up for it, was the Cody and Esser pairing. And as we know, they tied round 1. I don't remember either of them playing exceptional, but neither one played poorly. It looked like the pairing was still kind of live. And then, we made the decision, or you made the decision, to kind of split them. In which case Esser goes on and shoots a net 86. Cody goes on to shoot a net 82, which were the 12th and the 10th best of round 2 that day. Was that a decision you knew in the moment you didn't want? Was that a team decision? Kind of run us through the captain's perspective of how that kind of went.
I don't remember if we talked about it. I think we talked about everything as a group, pretty much going into every round. More of just, there was kind of, it was real close to winning in the first round. They didn't play bad at all, so it seemed like another safe kind of, again, just with the same thought that they're reliable guys. They're going to play. Both of them are kind of having an off round. Really hadn't happened at all in the last 2 years until then. So that's usually a safe call to make. It just didn't work out that time.
Cody and Preston as a pair themselves are now 2-0-2. So, they have obviously performed very well with each other as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense that you're kind of dividing a couple guys that are really steady for you and finding Cody a partner that he was really successful with in the past. That's obviously a pairing that I have my eyes on and, was happy to not see paired against myself. But Karts, is there any pairing on their side of those 3 that you were worried about when you see those announced Monday night?
That Cody and Preston pair is one that those guys can shoot some low scores on some holes. Trick and Chase, again, like, you give Chase that many dots, he's dangerous.
Getting Chase in the open field with dots is the game.
Chase at Diamond Spring with anything more than 5 is something I really didn't want to see, and we'll get to it. I did see it, unfortunately. But the Kyle and Esser pair was, I was not afraid of that pair. It was a little bit unfortunate that he and Parker got them. But Kyle had dots all over the place, and I still had a little bit of sunburn from running into Cody and Esser at Diamond Springs, where teeing it up against Esser, I was getting ready for the ball to go in the hole from everywhere. And we kind of dodged a bullet.
Chase, you're now after 2 rounds, you're only down 1 point. It's a pretty good spot to be, really. Even though it seems like the conductors continue to get stronger each year as we get towards singles. Is there urgency to try and get a sweep in the next round? You change up the pairings again. Are you really trying to get a lead or get caught up in this round, or are you pretty patient and trusting your guys to get it done in singles?
I think you want to just probably be a little bit more aggressive there, just to not be. It's a different mindset, knowing you have to kind of make something happen in singles as a team versus just knowing that you're close and just kind of go out there and do what you're going to do. So we did switch up and just trying to get it back to as close as we could going into that last day. Instead of ran out for a little bit more relaxed singles
Right.
round.
Jay, before we jump into round 3, we do have to take the break in between because we did end the day and we stopped at the Diamond Springs new clubhouse. I won't ask Carter because I have another question for Carter, but Chase and Justin, I'll ask you first. The food in there, they did well in that new clubhouse. No more hot dogs, no more sandwiches for us.
You're not kidding. The hot dogs that we made on the Blackstone were nowhere close to what they were putting out up in that grill room up there. Service obviously excellent. Everybody was thrilled with that. There's a lot of meat being slung up in there, and got the guys fueled up, and couple of turn dogs for them before we head out to round 3. Just great food, unbelievable service. I think everybody was thrilled and really excited to get back out there. Maybe some weren't that excited to leave, but I was excited to get back on the golf course.
That cold leather couch and my shoes being off, I was ready to just
nice air conditioning.
I do plan to sit in that lounge for at least 45 minutes after this coming year's round, even though we have no second match.
I'm playing in Group 1 at Diamond Springs.
Chase and Justin, you guys both got the brisket sandwich or pulled pork sandwich, something along those lines. One of the barbecue options.
No, I got two dogs actually.
That's right. You got like the jalapeno popper dog or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, us 3 had really good food. Carter.
Yeah.
Famously ordered a BLT bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich minus the tomato, the lettuce, and the mayo. Want us through that? Want us through that, Carter?
Yeah.
Choose your words wisely as well.
It was a tough scene, obviously. There's a lot of things going on. The Kickstart Invitational. Who's going to play with who? Where are we at? I just got off the course, and I ordered a BLT. They came back and said, "You want a BLT?" And I said, "Yeah, just the meat and lettuce." And they kind of looked at me, and then they went back and they brought it to me, and I was like, "Where's the turkey and the barbecue sauce that comes on this?" And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I look at the menu, and I'm like, "I meant to order the club. Did I not say club?" And they said no. And I was like, "Oh, sorry." And they're like, "We can take it back and put that other meat on there for you." I'm like, "Yes, please do. Here you go." This thing
I tried to order a club.
I got absolutely,
which would have turkey and cheese and lettuce, tomato, and bacon on it. He ordered a BLT, which had already removed 2 ingredients, and then asked for the other 2 to be taken off. Was handed a sandwich of bread and bacon, and could not figure out his own error.
And then was like, where did I go wrong here?
Yeah, then pretty much asked to speak to the manager. Well, Carter was on his heels. We'll just say that as we went into round 3. But Parker and Dan went out there in match 1 against Trick and Preston. Trick and Preston handled them just fine. They won 3-2. The first
3.
full point. Yeah, in round 3. Well, in the afternoon round, the second round at Diamond Springs.
Yeah, you said
the first full point for the Golden Harps. Then you had Karts and Mac, reunited against Chase and Kyle. They're able to get another point in their illustrious history together. Karts and Mac take that 1 up. And then myself and Cullen, I think potentially the first time we ever played together in the Kickstart, we took on the aforementioned team of Esser and Cody, and we were also able to handle them 3-2. So Carter's actually able to extend his lead to 2 full points here in round 3, heading into the break, and actually heading to Luna's to pick up some tacos.
Love those.
Ooh, and a canned margarita to go.
Oh yeah.
Chase, Trick and Preston, I mean, they got a huge point for you and the team in round 3. Mr. Irrelevant, Preston hadn't lost yet in the team portion, and that was the extent of the team portion, actually. Talk about his just overall role on the Golden Harps, being selected in the last round of the draft, not coming in with the most hype, even though he did bring some food for us, which was fucking awesome. Talk about his importance to the team and maybe even the trip.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, I'm looking back. I think he was our top point getter. Maybe tied with Tricky. But yeah.
Yeah, he's tied with Trick and Cody, actually. Cody's able to get 2 points by winning his singles match.
Big showing from him after going last in the draft. He like I said, he kind of carried me around in the first day to that half point. And then we kind of front loaded with him in transit for that 3rd round, trying to make sure we got something. And they handled it pretty easily. So really great tournament for him overall. Definitely should have gone higher up on the board, kind of looking back at things, power ranking wise.
On the flip side of that, it's kind of been mentioned a little bit, and they'd be the first to tell you the 2nd and 3rd round picks of Esser and Cody. They were only able to secure 1.5 in the team matches. Obviously, everyone wishes they would have played better, and there's no blame necessarily placed on them. But like I said, I think they'd be the first to kind of, bring that to light that they didn't play great. How does that, now that you're not in the chair anymore, how does that affect their draft stock going forward? Do you think Carter and the next captain will look maybe more at their 23 performance or their 24 performance? Where does that kind of sit with you now if you were kind of back in the chair?
No, I mean, I don't think it changes much anything. I think if I was captaining again this year, I'd look at it the same way. I think, like you just said, I mean, Cody with 2 points still, 2 out of 4 points is, most guys aren't going to even do that most years. So I think that's kind of where he's usually going to be around. Austin, I think, will kind of get back to his winning ways pretty quickly here. Don't see those two kind of drifting too much farther down the board given last year's performance by any means.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I think you're probably right. They're both, they're both pretty resilient. A future captain probably shouldn't just look at those couple matches to make their decisions. But Cart, for you, you went back to the well. You paired up with Mac, and you're able to get a point against the captain and our host here. What went into the decision to shake things up for round 3, and why did you select Mac to be your partner?
Honestly, we had, learning from experience, had maybe stuck with pairs a little bit too long in the past. Wanted to keep things fresh, get new perspectives, especially moving into singles. We had a little bit of room to give if we got one wrong. So was more willing to shy away from what was seemingly working. The reality is with only having 6 guys on your team, the pairs get a little jumbled, and what you can and can't do. I mean, a pairing of me and you, Jay, would likely gain a full point, but at what cost when we just kind of be battling each other. A Mac and Dan pair could go off the rails early. Parker and Cullen could be a viable option there, but just kind of looking to mix it up. I think the 3 pairs that we got to were, ones that could have success still, in terms of just who was going to be feeding off of who and how they were going to work together.
And to be fair to Chase, Chase he put up the best round 3 out of the entire field that day, shooting in that 73. We were winning 13 out of the 18 holes, winning or tied 13 out of the 18 holes. You want to talk about a legacy match for Chase and a guy just who let him down so badly. Shooting the match worst 86 that round. It was ugly and I felt bad. I still feel bad to this day, but Chase brought it that round, and I think he knew the importance of it as we were playing, and I just let him down.
I don't think that was true. I think we kind of had we made the team decision to go with those pairs, kind of with the thought that those were two pairs going out first and third that we knew were really strong. I hadn't played incredibly well going into that 3rd round. So we knew me and Kyle together was a bit of a flyer. And I think it really, I want to say we were down 2 or 3 holes twice, including going into 14, and then kind of felt a little bit like everyone kind of maybe checked out for a hole or 2, and then we looked up going into 17 and we were back to 1 down, kind of making them sweat it out. So it was a good, valiant team effort that just came up a little short there on the last hole. And I don't even feel too bad about that when we got beat by Mac, who made a hell of a birdie coming up 18, which is a heck of a hole to do something on time like that. So Carter got a little bit out of it on that one, and his partner really picked him up with a couple big time shots.
I got got by the guy who's always heckling on 18. I can put my hand up and say he got me. The reality is that match was an absolute fist fight between me and Chase. And, then every once in a while, Kyle would be in his pocket and Mac would be coming off the top rope with a steel chair out of nowhere. And that kind of gave us the edge. I'm looking at the Golf Genius and, we were, 2 down at the turn. and flipped it to get to 2 up at 15, winning four of the first, 6 holes on the back, and then surrendering 16 to be 1 up with 2 to play and almost giving it away after we clawed all the way back. Yeah, I mean, Mac essentially won the second half point on 18 with a 4. And that's when we needed him. He also almost gave it away on 17. Chase hits his ball in an animal hole, gets the bounce of the tournament. Mac has a 8-foot putt for birdie, and I said, Mac, all I need you to do is 2-putt this because Chase is about to do something crazy from the bushes. And Chase hits his chip shot from the forest. I can't even see him. It 2 hops on the green and hits the flagstick. I'm like, Mac, I need a 2-putt. Mac, I need a 2. The putter with the ball, and we get up. Oh no! Oh no! This ball rolled 7 feet by, and didn't even get near the hole. And now I got to get up and down from what used to be a bunker hole, and make like a 9-footer for par, which I believe tied the hole with Chase. Yeah, he made par from the bushes. Like, I wish we would have had the good cameras following that match, because there was some shots that nobody had any business making. And I'm glad that I haven't slept good yet since that match. So that match has me tired.
Speaking of not
That was
sleeping,
probably my favorite match I've played in the Kickstart so far. I think we, Kyle and I, can be proud of our efforts anytime you lose a match on a 35-foot downhiller going towards the ravine. You can't feel too bad about it.
I can't believe that anybody could birdie that hole with that whole location on that day.
Yeah.
You look ahead, Carts. You're up by 2 going into singles. I'm not as worried about how you were feeling as a team effort, but individually for one of your guys, Dan, who had really loaded up on hot sauce from Luna's that night. My guy was sweating. Did you have concern that Dan was going to be able to get it going for us or for you?
I had concern. I had concern for his shorts. I had concern for his ability to find a John at Pilgrim. I mean, it's the nicest course on the trip. You don't want to have to, give that guy a Biff shovel or maybe a cat hole lecture. That's a little nugget for Colin if he made it this far.
It's a deep cut.
That's a deep cut. That's a Kickstart 1 cut. Worried about his game. Not worried about anybody's game. They're going to play the game that they have that day. Was a little worried after he had too much hot sauce the night before and then somehow burned himself a little bit again at breakfast tacos. But we live in there.
Those tacos are so good. I'm so excited for them next year. Jay, I mean, it's the final event. Set us up for what we're all feeling and looking at. Set the scene here for singles.
Yeah, if you're keeping score at home, the conductors are carrying in a 5.5 to 3.5 lead into the singles matches here. They need 2 points to retain, right? They need 7.5 out of the 15 total. The Golden Harps, they need a big push here. They need 4.5 points to take the cup. Chase, when you wake up that morning, we're pumping out breakfast tacos. We're reheating everything we got in the fridge. Are your thoughts, in the present? What are your thoughts on the matchups? And is there one on here, kind of as I go through them, that you're really keyed in on? Because first match out is myself versus Kyle. I think the night before, everybody thought that Kyle's being thrown out there as the sacrificial lamb. You got Dan versus Cody going with us in the first group. Then you got Cullen versus Trick. That's a big match right there. You got Mac versus Esser, another big one. Parker versus Preston, a rookie versus a guy who has really been carrying his team thus far. And then you have Captain v. Captain. So is there one other than your own that you're really, really looking into and hoping for to get going?
No, I feel like nothing against my guy Kyle, but we did think that pretty much was a summation of the conversation in the team room.
David versus Goliath.
I mean, because before you
And
go
look
any
how wrong we
further,
were.
if that's the game plan, really you're sort of conceding that you have to win every match the rest of the way, right? You're throwing Kyle out there. In theory, the score is then 6.5 to 2.5, and you guys have to win the rest.
I mean, to be honest, I won't even say it was a complete lost cause. You had been playing pretty consistently well. It would have been a tough matchup for anyone. We talked about having you in transit go at it again, which would have been a fun one to watch for sure. But also we were pretty confident with Jake being able to get a point against anyone else. So we kind of went with the strategy of put Kyle out there with 1 billion dots. See what'll happen. I think that's a move that's going to change the game from here on out.
Yes, I think that will significantly influence the Kickstart singles matches going forward.
You two probably have 3 or 4 of those coming up in the next couple of years here.
You two better get familiar.
A lot of golf together on Sundays.
Listen, if I'm the captain, or if I'm privy to captain-like conversations, I think Kyle's draft stock went up a lot from that one match. So,
and as should Liam and Fishies too, who are they are now higher handicaps than I am. They got more dots on the card than I do, and I don't think either one of them are better or worse than I am. Like I think there's a lot of dots on the table there.
Yeah, it's something that'll show up in your 5-minute hacks videos on. You're scrolling through TikTok. You need to win a point. Here's a 5-minute hack for you.
Beyond that, though, I think we felt pretty good about all of the other matches. Like you said, Cody and Dan was a good matchup for us. Austin and Brennan we thought would be a good matchup. Owen's never an easy person to beat. So, but Jake was our top end talent. Thought he'd be good to throw out there. And then Preston had played so well. Parker, who had a great tournament the whole time, put Preston out there, and he nearly delivered for us. But he handled himself well the entire match. So we felt really good about everything. Looked like it was potential for everything to work out about halfway through.
Yeah, so let me go through the matches, and I'll go through them in the order they finished, actually, rather than the order that they started in, because you can kind of see that this gets really tight early, right? So Kyle defeats me 5-3 in the first match out, and it's the first point to go up on the board. It's bright gold. Everybody can see it on their Golf Genius. The score then becomes 5.5, 4.5, right? So these guys are closing in on us. Then Cody's able to defeat Dan 2-1 before we get to the 18th tee, and realistically, of the points that are actually up on the board, the score is now tied 5.5, 5.5. And back behind that, Parker and Preston in the third group, that match ends. Actually, Carter and Chase's match ends before theirs. So on 17 green, before Group 2 was done with, or had teed off kind of on 18, Carter defeats Chase. That takes the score 6.5 to 5.5. And so we've got a group coming down 18, Cullen and Tricky, tied at the time, or actually Cullen 1 up, so the potential to claim the clinching point, and Esser 1 up, the potential to get another one up on the board against the conductors. Those both go in favor of the conductors. So Cullen's able to beat Trick there and clinch the final point that's going to retain the cup for the conductors, making it 7.5 to 5.5. And then Mac and Esser tie on that last hole. Mac's able to beat Esser on the final hole to make it 8-6. And then as Parker and Preston come down the final hole, Parker takes that last hole to win that match 2 up, and the final score ends up being 9-6. So with only a couple matches left out there, realistically, the Golden Harps had a really good chance to finish that off and complete a comeback that I'll just go out on a limb and say probably will never happen in the Kickstart Invitational. Being down that many points going into the day with that few matches out on the course would be really, really difficult to come back from.
I'm just looking at it too. I'm going back because it still
I look at
sucks
this
because
genius a lot.
I look through it often as well, and I'm just looking again through 12 holes. The Golden Harps had we were winning by every match was in our favor through 12.
Yeah, so if the matches ended through 12 holes, the conductors would have tied one of them. The Golden Harps would have claimed all the rest and would have won by a 1.5 points.
Yeah. And I remember we were at that point, and the way that it actually worked out in real time is I had beaten Justin. Cody was about to beat Dan. And then the second group was at least on the app, they were holding their own. I think it might have been tied at the time. And then the last group, we were either tied or winning. So we were Cody and I are looking at each other holy shit, we're going to do this. This is it.
And I'm not going to let Carter tell you all about it because he'll tell you how every single hole of every single match went. But the conductors were able to flip it on those last holes. I think it's a credit to the conductors, but it's also a credit to Pilgrim's Run, those last, beginning with that sort of volcano hole, par 3, and then the very difficult 16th along the water, and 17 tight through the chute with the very elevated green. And, of course, everybody knows about Entice, number 18. Coming down there, water, big bunkers, tight landing area. You're puckering a little bit coming down there, and the conductors were able to get it done. 9-6 ends up being the final score. Cullen Turzin goes 3-0-1. He's voted the MVP. I was able to take home the low net, +6. I shot actually under par gross for the week. I was pretty proud of that. The Carlisle Fraser Unsung Hero Award, clinched by his final round match, of course, went to Kyle Steffi. The Yeti Cooler's Most Improved Award went to Brendan McLaren, who improved his net score by 31 strokes from year over year. Just an absolute runaway victory of that award. Really great to see. And then the Labatt Blue Rookie of the Year, unanimous vote. Third round pick, Parker Mitchell. He goes 2-1-1 to take home the Rookie of the Year.
Chase, I had in a roundabout way kind of asked you in the beginning, but kind of running through the whole tournament itself again, and kind of sparking these memories. What do you take away from your experience as captain? Would you ever run it back with the Golden Harps if given the opportunity in the future? Kind of run us through your thoughts on both of those questions.
Yeah, I feel good about our team. I would take that team again any day. I think kind of what you're talking about those last couple holes there at Pilgrims, it's a tough play to play defense. And I almost feel like we got ourselves into the weird spot where we're playing defense, 2 points down in the tournament, being a couple up there. And it's a tough place to do that. Whereas the conductors you were 2 shots ahead or 2 points ahead going into those last couple holes. You're kind of freed up from that and you can be a little bit more aggressive. And I think you saw some shots definitely for myself. Some of the other guys, they kind of lost their matches in the last couple of there where you gotta stay aggressive through those last couple and you can't really like give anyone any room. Those are pretty easy holes to mess up on. But they're not too tough if you do it the right way. So I think we could have definitely closed it out there. Wish we would have done it. Felt like we were so close despite the final score. I mean, pretty much within an hour, we went from looking like we were going to be the comeback story of the event to the kind of sitting there watching Carter with this trophy again. So I wish I could go back. Can't blame anyone but myself. I needed to put up more points throughout the week. Carter, I forget his exact words, but talking about our match, the Battle of the Titans, that for about 6 holes in the middle is just 2 guys shooting themselves in the foot, back and forth. So we both lost some chances to close that one out earlier. We needed it a lot more, and I didn't get it done. So
the people are dying to know. I mean, as the ultimate players coach, is the Golden Harps franchise done, or is there opportunity?
No, we'll be back. Well, yeah, I think like the added kind of continuity it gives to let some guys, as they captain and people start to come up a couple times, maybe build on the ways they've done things before. So hopefully we can kind of start cycling some new captains through here and letting some more guys do it. But I had a chance to do that this year and didn't do it. So, but I'd love to be back and love to keep building that our Golden Harps.
Yeah, the history is strong. It's a brand that will carry on, and I think anybody that say 4, 5, 6, 8 years down the road, anybody should be proud to be part of a Golden Harps resurgence if that comes around, for sure. That would be I would be pretty proud to wear that harp on my chest if it came to it, for sure. So Kyle, I got a question for you. We had a tie for MVP amongst the committee, the voting at first. What was your thoughts on the vote, and did the committee get it right?
So we're talking about the tie between Carter and Cullen.
There was a tie, I thought.
There was a tie, and then we had a revote.
Mm-hmm. And so this is a double-edged sword, an iceberg controversy, if you will, because Cullen did vote for himself, Carter did not. We got to cut. We no more voting for yourselves in the future. I think that's
really.
I think we totally cut that, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of just my opinion as a player, as great as the captain Carter is, and as storied of a franchise the conductors are, and without any bit of disrespect being sent towards Carter or Justin, but it felt like after every single match when us as a team were talking about pairings and what to do and how to strategize, it was Cullen who was the thorn on your side, the guy that you just couldn't, you can't figure out how to master that or even come up with an answer for it. And he played well. He played to what we were hoping that he wouldn't, ultimately. Not to say that Carter didn't necessarily, but it was just Cullen felt a little bit stronger, a little bit more unbeatable that weekend.
Cart, is I've got another question for you, but if you're willing, who did you vote for? And going back, would you still put a vote in for yourself if you could change your vote?
I voted for Cullen. I'm being crystal clear. I felt like it would be like I felt like I deserved to win the MVP. And felt like it was gonna bring me some bad juju to vote for myself. But I mean, looking at the scoreboard, he scored the same as me and did it with, a little bit more come from behind fashion, especially in singles. Having won the MVP before as well, I felt fine to vote for him, knowing that if everybody else felt like Cullen was the MVP, then he earned it. Obviously, finding out that the vote that clinched it for him was his own, and if I would have voted for myself, we would have had a hung jury. Hurt a little bit, but that being said, I voted for Cullen, and he obviously he got more votes than I did.
I think maybe you guys just agreed on who the MVP should have been. For the record, I don't want this to taint the legacy of Cullen Turzin here, but I think that if you wholeheartedly believe that you're deserving of the award, you should be able to vote for yourself. But we'll take that conversation offline and talk about it another time. Going back to you, Cart, is there more pressure than ever then to win in 2025? Does that make you want to stick to your guns, or do you consider changing anything about the way that you draft guys or make pairings for next year?
I mean, the pressure is obviously extremely high now. It feels like there's 17 guys in the group chat, and maybe 16 of them want to see the conductors lose. It's one of those things where there's a lot of guys sitting around going, I want to be the captain, and I cannot bear to hear that train whistle one more time. That being said, I think that that's all a facade, and we're going to get to draft night, and there's going to be 7 guys picked to be on the conductors, and they're going to be like, all right, thank God we're going to win because we're on the conductors, and the conductors always find a way to win. The pressure is there. I mean, I think about this. I think about draft night probably close to 5 or 6 times a week. Before we got on the call, I looked at my phone. I have a picture from February 14th of last year, where I had all of the players listed and categorized in a way of how I saw them and their abilities. As far as last year changing my opinion, there's some guys out there that I have turned on, whether that be as guys that I really want to make sure I get or guys that I'm okay to go without. I obviously don't want to give away all that because we could have a potential captain either on the call or listening. They probably won't make it this far to even hear the details anyways, but you can never be too sure.
If they're not on this call, they might.
They're not on this call.
Chase, do you have any questions for Carter on his process? And Cart's, after that, what do you take away from the way that Chase led his team going forward?
No, I mean, I think Carter has the formula that works for him. It's hard to argue with. I think he places a big emphasis on kind of the top end talent. When you give, Carter, who's already one of the top, 4 or 5 players, his pick of basically 2 or 3 of the rest of those, then it's tough recipe to overcome. And I think he plays that strategy out well, obviously.
Karts, you have anything that you're going to take away from the way that Chase put his team and his pairs together?
I mean, yeah, obviously they gave us a scare. In singles especially, the dots against you, in a event where it seemed like you were invincible, you got taken down by a high handicapper, and it was like, oh my god, he can lose. Honestly, it might move your draft stock down. I gotta get away from this narrative that you've been carrying me.
He's starting this already. We don't even know who the other captain is, bud.
Oh, we'll get to that.
We gotta, I think the fourth one will solidify the conductors as a dynasty that can't be touched and probably cause the tournament to explode. Guys are gonna not want to come unless they're on the conductors if we win another one. But the reality is the pressure is high. One of my biggest fears in life is bears in the woods. Second to that is losing the kickstart and getting made fun of because of it, even though I've already won it 3 times in a row. Yeah, I'm afraid to lose it, and I'm going to do whatever I can to win it again.
A regular person's brain might think that Justin is the reason the kickstart or the conductors win. Galaxy brain is that Mac is actually the real one, the real backpack. He's the one that's putting the team on.
Yeah, there's three players that have been on the conductors the entire time, and there's one that doesn't get talked about that much when you bring up the success of the conductors. Some people might say it was because he was 0-4 in year 2. We don't know.
It's hard to say.
One of them's been the first overall pick twice.
Which is so insane, but that's it. Chase, appreciate you joining us. It's been long overdue to have you on the pod and do the recap here. Any parting words for the fellas here?
No, I'm excited for the new format here and coming up quickly. About halfway to the next one already, so looking forward to it.
100%. So as promised, fellas, before we roll, Jay, the people want to know, I'll just put it as blunt as possible here. You going to be the captain for 2025?
For 2025, I will be removing my name from the running for being the captain. And the reason for that is because my wife and I are expecting our first child in the end of May. May 26th is the due date. So there is a less than 0 chance that I am unable to make the kickstart at all. So for that reason, I felt like at this point I should remove my name from the possibility of being captain, even though I think that I really would like to take on the responsibility now in year 4. That's not going to be the case for 2025. So.
Yeah, and the committee, we've been working through this. We've known for a little bit now, but Justin is out of the running for captain here in the off chance, and we are gonna work through figuring out what the doctor says and figuring out if he can make it or if he can't make it, and we'll have kind of contingencies in place. But we don't got to worry about that right now. All you guys got to worry about is the who is going to be captain and how we're going to select it. I think we got a fun little way of how we're going to do it this year. And those will be coming up here soon. But that's it for the pod today.
Yeah, excited to be part of that decision going forward. Of course, it's not going to be me, but we're gonna find the next guy, who really wants it. Thanks for coming on here, all of you guys. Really appreciate it. Love you all.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.